Hey there, welcome to American Roots. Today I'm gonna have a busy day. I am going to have to feed the garden, get a lot of gardening stuff done. It's supposed to be kind of nice before it gets too hot. I think 109 today. But I wanted to come in. I had a viewer ask me if I had made the cinnamon rolls yet without the lid on the Le Creuset. And Joe has been bugging me for some caramel sticky buns. This recipe is fantastic. It's absolutely my favorite recipe. Set cinnamon rolls aside, these caramel sticky buns are fantastic. So I'm gonna make those and I'm gonna split the recipe in half, and I'm gonna make half of them sticky buns and I'm gonna do the other half cinnamon rolls. Let's get started. I keep my yeast in the freezer in a mason jar, and that way it keeps it good a lot longer than if I was to just store it in the pantry. I need a tablespoon of yeast and 3/4 cup warm water and 3/4 cup warm milk. We want the milk to be between 110 and 115. I'm going to go more to the 110 side. I'm going to mix them both together and heat them up together. We're going to add a tablespoon of yeast. We're going to add a 1/4 cup of sugar. And we're going to let that yeast start to bloom. 3 tablespoons of, I use 100% pressed olive oil, light olive oil. You can use vegetable oil or canola oil. We're getting very nice bubbles. It's looking very foamy in there. The sugar activates the yeast. It says 1.5 to start, so I'm gonna roughly measure a 1/2 cup. We need, ultimately, you're gonna use between 3 and 4 cups depending on how the dough looks. So I'm gonna just start with a rough 1.5 cups. 2 teaspoons salt. Now I'm gonna attach the dough hook and start to mix. Together, I'll start to add flour a 1/2 cup at a time. Less is always best, and I don't ever usually use the full amount that it asks for. It's very dependent on your conditions in your house, the humidity, the temperature, all of that. So less is best when adding this flour. And then add a 1/2 cup of flour and stir. So I'm up to 3 cups of flour now. See how it's starting to like pull off the edges? There's kind of like layers that you can start to see. I am gonna let this roll before I add any more flour and just see how much of that it takes off. And that will tell me exactly how sticky the dough is right now. So it kind of touched all the sides, grabbed everything, and then it turned real sticky again. So right now I'm at 3 cups of flour. I'm gonna add another 1/2 cup of flour after I scrape my bowl. See how the dough is pulled off the sides of the bowl and it's almost like starting to make it silver? You want to let it kind of roll until the whole entire bowl is as clean as it can get. So I'm at 3.5 cups flour, and my dough has taken the stuff off the sides. I can touch it without it coming off on my hands. It's time to roll it onto a floured surface. And I'm gonna put this in an oiled bowl and let it proof. Now you can use cooking spray in your bowl. I have done that before. I am gonna use my extra light olive oil. You generally just wanna double that in size. One of the things we're working on is we have this year to get the backyard completely ready to move. So it's stuff like this that we need to figure out what we're doing with. We need to finish using the materials. Look at the lilies. And we need to just start getting the backyard in order so that we can go. So some of the things that we're going to be working on today is just getting the grass mowed, getting things cleaned up, because in the meantime, I'm still growing food. So we are going to work on that while we're waiting for the cinnamon rolls to proof. But good use of our time. The hardest part too is you think, oh, in the city, you don't have very many predators. This is a strawberry that apparently a rat has eaten. I am on the hunt for you. Sissy's been telling me there's something in this. I think it's living in the aloe vera. But now to find fruit eaten, that tells me it's back here grazing. Nope, not gonna happen. So before it gets too hot, I'm gonna come out here and start feeding things. I'm gonna give them a good fish emulsion and some garden tone. So before the sun even comes up over the house, I'm gonna get that going. And by the time I'm done with that, the cinnamon rolls should be done proofing and ready to start working on those. Let's get going. So I'm gonna come over to my cabinet that we put on the wall. Used good use of that thing that was found for the trash. Probably could fare to feed the berries with some berry tone, garden tone. And what I like to do is about a gallon per bed, depending on the size of the bed. Joe just came out. He must have smelled the dough for the cinnamon rolls. And it looks like he's gonna start up the lawnmower. I'm about halfway done. I've done the south side of the yard. Now here's the carrots. And I'm so excited because we are actually seeing little sprouts. I have parsnips planted on the other side. Now I buy a big bag of this garden tone and I put it in this little bucket, this old Gaia green bucket that I have. And then I can just take it and put it on all the plants. So we're gonna come over here and I'm gonna start on this end, and I just like sprinkle it in the bed. And it's much cheaper for me to buy it. This is where the tomatoes were. Here is marigolds growing and they need to be fed. So I'm just gonna, and there's a volunteer watermelon in here. I have planted nothing in here since the tomatoes. There's a blackberry over there. So I guess I can feed that. needs some mulch. The purple bushes are doing great. These bushes, the more you water them, the more flowers they get. And since Joe put the landscaping lumber down there and kind of tied them off, and we've just been trimming them and then watering them on a drip, they just have purple flowers nonstop. So the green stalk I fed the split leaf. So this garden bed, I'm just gonna come in and just sprinkle it. And then once you do this, you give everything a really good water. So Joe just got everything mowed. He got everything mowed. So we are gonna work on getting everything covered with some fresh mulch, maybe adding some fresh soil to this now. And I'm gonna go check on our cinnamon rolls. I'm just so in love with these. I mean, here's the same flower, zinnia and zinnia, and to just have pink and purple, I'm just so excited, right next to orange and yellow. I love it. All right, let's go check on our cinnamon rolls. Looks like we're about doubled. Turn the pan. I turn the oven on about 200 just to like let it create like a warm environment in here, warmer than what it would be without any heat going. So I think we're ready to roll it out. What I need to do is I'm gonna prep this recipe in half for cinnamon rolls in the Le Creuset, and the other half I'm gonna prep for caramel pecan sticky rolls. This recipe is really versatile. It's the same dough, and you fill it with cinnamon and sugar to make caramel pecan rolls as you would cinnamon rolls, so you can use it for two different things. So if you have people with different tastes, like Tag, who wants walnuts and raisins in his cinnamon rolls and no frosting or lightly frosted, you can do that with half, and on the other half you can make it with caramel and pecans or no pecans. It's just really nice to be able to have a very versatile recipe in the kitchen, especially when you cook for a lot of people. Start by greasing our pan. I like to use a pastry brush. If you don't have one, you can use like a paper towel. I've used a butter knife. It's a little more tricky trying to get in there, but you just want to make sure that you grease it. While we're at it, we might as well butter the Le Creuset. So I just take a fork and I mix that all together. Now that we have the heavy cream and brown sugar mixed up, we're going to pour it in the bottom of the pan. Now, if I was going to do the entire recipe with all caramel, I would make a double caramel recipe. I've always done that in the past because I like them to be gooey, not hint at caramel. I like there to be caramel all over them. So I would make another batch of that caramel with heavy cream recipe so that it could go in the other pan, and I would divide the dough that way. But because I'm only doing one and I'm doing cinnamon rolls in the Le Creuset, I'm only going to use one recipe for that. The next thing I would do is if I want to add pecans, Addie doesn't like pecans, so I'm only going to put half on there because Joe and I do like them. So I'm just going to take these half pecans and roughly just kind of chop them, break them up in my hands over half of the caramel batter. And then that way, if she wants one without nuts, we have it. All right, so now I have that. I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to work on rolling out the dough. So here's our dough, looking beautiful. I'm going to let it fall onto the floured surface, and I'm just going to press all the air out of it. Flip it over. Now, this is also going to be where I could just roll it out on my counter, but I'm super weird. about that kind of thing. These aren't granite countertops, and there isn't that real purpose for doing that. I'm going to put 2 cutting boards down. That way I can roll this completely out. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take that damp towel and I'm going to lay it down on the counter and then put my cutting boards down on that. This will keep them from sliding around as I roll the dough out. Now you don't want to use too much flour, but you don't want it to be sticky. I just start rolling this out. So you can see it makes quite a bit. I mean, makes quite the roll. And that's about, I'd say about 1/4 of an inch thick. Is I'm gonna roll out the butter on top. And I just butter all the way across the surface that I'm gonna put cinnamon and sugar. You should put butter. And I take it all the way up to the edge on this side, because this is gonna be what I roll in. Be very, very generous with your butter. There we go. So that's 2 tablespoons of cinnamon that I added. So 1/4 cup sugar, 1/4 cup brown sugar, and 2 tablespoons cinnamon. And that's gonna be our center. And I'm gonna spread this out all across the butter. If you have any of this brown sugar mixture left over, you can always save it in the freezer for pie filling when you make like an apple pie, or you wanna make like a streusel topping, but I typically don't have very much left because I love cinnamon and sugar. All right. Now I'm gonna start rolling this, and I'm actually gonna take the cinnamon and sugar all the way to this edge, because I am rolling. This is gonna be the center of my roll. So let me move you over. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take the lip of this and I'm gonna roll it in. And you want it tightly, like pull it and roll it. You don't want this thing to like come apart and roll away from you as you are rolling your cinnamon roll. I want to go this way, or I'm going to have the fattest cinnamon rolls in all the land. So I'm going to turn this around because I have my cinnamon and sugar up to this edge. So I'm going to roll this like I was doing the other way before I got it wrong. I was just thinking, if I'm splitting this in half, that's not going to be enough rolls. Let's see, I'll cut the dough in half. And there is our rolls. So now I am going to cut them about 1 inch. Okay, and there's your cinnamon roll. Looks delicious. And you can go through if you want and pre-mark your inch slats so you know how many you're gonna get. And I'm gonna cut the end off of this one because there was no love in there. So now what you're gonna do is set your rolls in there. And remember, we're gonna proof them again, so we wanna give them enough space to grow. So it looks like we'll have 4. If I want them to get big enough, I'll just leave them at 4. I'm gonna finish cutting this dough, and we were making 1 inch pieces. We were watching live on Tag and B, and they were talking about the 5-pound cinnamon roll, and I thought, challenge accepted. I want to make a 5-pound cinnamon roll. I don't know that it would take me a week to eat it though. I think I'm with Tag on that one. I think she said her parents, it took her a week. And then I have these two. That was the end that I accidentally rolled. So here's our buttered Le Creuset. We're gonna put these in here. Now I had an end I didn't want to waste, so I'm gonna go ahead and put 3 in that row. So we're gonna cover these in plastic. You could cover them with a towel if you wanted. Just at this point, I want to try to capture some of that humidity, let them rise. Just lightly cover them. So I think we're ready to take the plastic off. And we're gonna put these in the oven. 30 minutes. I'm actually gonna do 25 because I want to keep an eye on the Le Creuset, but the other ones are gonna need 30 to 35 minutes. I think I'm gonna let them go 5 more minutes. Now, one thing I'm gonna do is let these cool for a minute or two and then take them out of the pan. They do continue to cook in the cast iron. And I'm gonna let these cool for a minute before I put them on the cookie sheet. And I'll let that sit there so all the caramel and everything won't fall off. I'll open it up in just a second and scrape the insides. Be very careful because this is so hot. Yum. Just be very careful. So what I'm looking for is a certain thickness. As it cools, it's gonna thicken up. So it's been about 4 minutes, maybe. I'm gonna let that, I'm just gonna kind of drizzle this over. Well, I need a picture. All right, well, here are caramel pecan sticky rolls and regular cinnamon rolls with a light glaze. I put the recipe down in the description below, and I've also included it in my website at AmericanRootsFarm.com. We appreciate you being here with us, and until next time, from our family to yours, God bless you.